Hi there, and thanks for tuning in for another episode of Math with Mullins. Today we'll be looking at our notes number 6 of this unit, choosing an appropriate display. For today's notes, you will need to have the 7 definitions of data displays. The remaining slides that you're going to see, you're just working with a partner on and deciding what your answer should be. So the only thing you really need to have written down are the definitions of the different data displays, which are going to be shown on the next slide. Let's get started. Here are all the data displays that we'll be talking about. As I'm talking about them, you can pause the video to write these down, or you can just write them down as I talk about them. The first one is a bar graph. That just compares amounts. So comparing the different amounts of the same thing would be a good way to use a bar graph. A circle graph shows data as parts of a whole. Normally with circle graphs, you've got percents on these. So that might be a keyword that you look for. For stem and leaf plots, this is an easy way. If you have a lot of data, probably more than 20 numbers, that's going to show how the data and the values are distributed. So if you have a lot of things in the 10s or the 20s or the 30s, you're able to see where all your data is distributed. The same thing for a line plot. It's just showed in a different way. The stem and leaf plot is a vertical basically T-chart with your stems on the left side, leaves on the right side, whereas a line plot, you've got a number line and dots that are located above each number to show how those values are distributed as well. Both of them serve the same purpose. A line graph shows how amounts change over time. So anytime the question is asking you something about time or how did it change from this date to this date, a line graph probably would be your best bet there. Number 6 is histograms, and they show frequencies of data values in intervals of the same size. So if you're talking about number groups or groups in weight, those type of things where you can show the same intervals, you can use histograms. And then lastly is a Venn diagram. We've talked about those before as well. Those show how two sets of things could have things in common and how they also are different from one another. If you need to go back and rewind just to make sure you have all 7 of these definitions, feel free to do so. Let's go ahead and get started in trying to figure out where all of these fit in with some of our questions. The first one we have is a group of data, and it says a group of schools in New England participated in a 2-month study. They observed the following animals. So they've got birds, amphibians, unknown, mammals, and reptiles. What data display do you think would best describe the data? Pause the video, check with your neighbor, and then play to see what the answer should be. This answer should be a bar graph because it's comparing different amounts. This is another set of data. For an example, we have a 1-week study along a 4-mile section of a forest found the following weights of raccoons that have been tagged and released. Again, what data display do you think best describes the data? Again, you can pause, talk with your neighbor, and push play when you're ready to see the answer. Because there are so many numbers here, it would be best to use a stem and leaf plot or a line plot because it's going to show you how each value or how the values are distributed. If you have a lot looks like we have a lot of 18-pound raccoons, a lot of 20-pound raccoons. So a stem and leaf plot or line plot would be best here since we have so much data and it's relatively close to one another. Choosing an appropriate display for this section. How about the number of students in a marching band each year? What do you think? This one would be best for a line graph because it's going from year to year, and line graphs talk about time, showing amounts and how they change over time. How about a comparison of people's shoe sizes and their heights? Remember, when you compare numbers, it is best to use a bar graph. How did you do? Again, let's talk about some appropriate displays. The population of the United States divided into age groups. That one will be histograms because different age groups are intervals of the same size. You might have an age group 0 to 10, and then 11 through 20, and then 21 through 30, and then 31 through 40, etc. So that would be the best way to show the population of the U.S. divided into age groups. How about this one? The percents of students in your school who played basketball, football, soccer, or lacrosse. Yeah, that one's going to be circle graph, showing data as parts of a whole, or just the notion that they added the percent keyword in that one. This one is going to be a good one to pause and try this and talk with your neighbor. You record the number of hits for your school's new website for 5 months. Tell which data display is appropriate for representing how the number of hits changed during the 5 months and explain your reasoning. Do you think it would be best on letter A, where you have August, September, October, November, December? Or do you think it would be best on letter B, where you have the number of hits down here at the bottom and the frequency? Now that you've had time to talk with your neighbor, I hope that you have decided to choose letter A. This one shows the increasing amounts for each of the 5 months. We're able to see how much was in August all the way through December. Letter B, which is a histogram, does not show how much was in August, September, October, November, December. Instead, it just gives us the intervals, which really doesn't tell us anything at all. A should be your best bet. The last little bit, we're just going to review and look at a few stuff that's going to introduce for tomorrow. Remember, a stem and leaf plot shows each value and how the values are distributed. This type of graph compares amounts. That one is a bar graph. The graph that shows data as parts of a whole is a circle graph. A blank shows each value and how the values are distributed. Again, that one is similar to a stem and leaf plot, but it's a line plot. What graph shows how amounts change over time? That one is a line graph. The histogram shows frequencies of data values in intervals of the same size. And a Venn diagram shows members of sets and how they overlap or what they have in common. Just kind of a preview for the next lesson, graphs that could be misleading. These two graphs are misleading because, number one, this first graph has a break in the graph, and when you're talking about normal graphs, they have to go up by even intervals. You can't just jump and go 0 and then 8, 9, 10. It has to go up by 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, whatever you choose. So this one will be misleading because of the break in the graph. This box office graph is misleading because all the values are right here kind of close together, so it's harder to tell what exactly is the value for each of those years. So again, explaining why the data could be misleading, a break in the graph. Also notice, look, all these pictures are kind of hard to tell because they don't use the same size of the pictures. And then for this one on the company profits, it's very hard to tell which ones are the more specific numbers, and if you notice, the bar graph keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as you go on. They need to use the same size or the same image for those. Again, choosing different sizes of images are not good. These all need to be the same size. Since they're not the same size, this is going to be a misleading graph. We'll talk more about this tomorrow in your notes. This is going to conclude our video. Remember, you needed to have your 7 definitions written down of all those different data displays. Once you show me that you have all your definitions written, I'll go ahead and hand you your homework so you can start on that if time's left over in class. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.